Finally, DC, the way Zack Snyder intended it. We saw the Justice League, Zack Snyder edition, so you know what that means.
How did Schwarzenegger grow a baby in his belly, rock a rhinestone vest while ripping Justin to Kelly, or maybe see a burlesque show with Nick Crow and take a boat with speed to hitting cruise control. J-Man, Big Paul in the beautiful June, gonna take you from the goob all the way to the room. Ran the games of Street Fighter, helped to blow off steam, just a sucker punch the odd life of Timothy Green. Sharknado, the birdemic, how we staying alive. They call it in the badass and he's on the line, cranking 88 minutes cause they cool as ice, cause a bad Jim Varney looking kinda nice. Paul and June getting literal, Jason is getting laid. June is making sure all the monkey shots getting paid. They judge a bunch of movies while they're making the grade. Here's a real question for you, how did this get made? That's a good look, Haru.
What's that smell?
Hello, people of Earth, and welcome to a How Did This Get Made Matinee Monday, a very different episode of Matinee Monday, because this is a very different episode of How Did This Get Made. In this episode, How Did This Get Made did a crossover with our friends at the Blank Check podcast. If you've not listened to Blank Check, you will love it. It is a show that gets deep into directors' filmographies. We love them. They love us. We decided we needed to talk about Zack Snyder's Justice League. We all came to it with different expectations. And I have to say, we walked away all kind of liking it. Yeah. Yes. Was I in a post-COVID vaccine haze? A little bit, but I still enjoyed this movie. Zack Snyder's vision was very interesting to me. And I got to tell you, there's a great amount of backstory here. Like I said, it's a different episode. It kind of feels like an Unspooled meets How Did This Get Made meets Blank Check. It's a mix and match. June is not here. I think that if we made her watch that, she would be very angry at me. I don't think that she would talk to me even now. And episode was a long time ago, March 2021. But here, take a listen to a clip of us breaking down Zack Snyder's The Justice League. A good friend of mine last night, who is a very big comic book fan, reached out to me and he's like, "What did you think of the Snyder Cut?" And I said, I think he only should make 4-hour-long movies, because there was something about this movie that felt like, oh, this is the most complete version of this director that I've ever seen. And I was there for it. I feel like the way he cut it up was like, it recognized that, okay, you could watch it in parts. I don't know. There was something about the way that this movie gelled that worked for me. Like sure, there's things to make fun of or whatever, but
yes,
there is something that really works here. And I was impressed.
It is just, especially if you watch it in juxtaposition with the Joss Whedon cut, or actually with Batman v Superman, it is simply more cohesive, more interesting, more successfully plotted. You know, like this, the Justice League movie is confoundingly plotted, right? In the release cut, in the theatrical cut, right? The theatrical cut was like truly 2 hours of nonsense. Like it really was.
The Russian family,
the populated Russian town, that Steppenwolf is the single bad guy. In 2 hours, they're trying to build a team, fight a world building evil, resurrect
Introduce
Superman.
3 heroes.
Right. Most of them have essentially not been in movies before.
Yes. Origin story characters who they just simply don't. They just show up and are now there.
Cyborg might be one of my favorite characters now. Like,
here's how much I enjoyed the Snyder Cut. To a degree, I was like, the minute it started, my first note is, fuck you, it's in 4:3.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck you. Yeah. How dare you make me watch a different aspect ratio? 20 minutes later, I'm like, I don't care. I don't care that it's in 4:3. This is infinitely better at explaining what's happening to me and tonally consistent throughout, which the score helped, which his editing helped. I don't know, like it just
I stopped taking
better.
notes. I stopped taking notes because like I'm here. I'm in. Like every now and then I might jot down one thing, but I was like, you have pulled me into a world, and now I also get like people like, oh, it's CGI and slow mo, but it felt like I was going over to somebody's house to have a meal that I'd never had before, right? Like, yes, there are a lot of things that I may not have picked myself. There are a lot of things that may not even be my favorite thing, but in being presented in a loving way, I was open to trying everything there, and I found myself liking it more than I ever thought I would have. Like,
Okay, I need to share my hottest take.
Okay.
That I've been sitting on, and I feel like
the kid Griffin Newman coming in.
I'm overflowing with hot take. Already we're touched on so many things that I'm just like champing at the bit to
please just interrupt
to
us.
spin on.
Champ
But
away,
but
my
I will
friend.
say right off the bat, because you were asking for a previous history, David and I are much like you guys. We're more Marvel zombies than DC fans. I think I like DC a little more than David does. Like, I actually read more DC comics, I think, at our comic reading peak than you, because you never really read DC titles at all, right?
Only stuff like when Grant Morrison did All-Star Superman. You know, when people would come in and have like some sort of like contained take. But anytime I tried to swoop in and be like, you know what, I'm going to read all the Batman titles, I would tap out really fast because I was just like, I can't, you know, like reading comic books, if you really want to do it, it's very time consuming. You got a lot of shit to keep up with. And so like Marvel was always as
David,
much as
are you
I could
okay?
handle.
You seem overwhelmed by the concept of reading comic books.
As a child,
It's too much.
without a
too
cell
much.
phone, I imagine, or internet.
I mean, I'm just imagining you as a young boy on the streets of New York City going into the comic shop to buy your comics. I have no reason
Waving
to
his
believe-
arms around. There are too many titles.
There's
How am I
too
supposed to
many
keep up with
titles.
this?
I'm just a young boy living in New York City.
You know, I know where you're going, Jason, but I was a young boy in New York City. I did go to the comic shop until 9 years of age, and then I went to the comic shop in London where I lived.
And then you're like, whoa, give me that Judge Dredd. You're like, give me those
Captain
English.
Britain.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't wait to read Dennis the Menace, but the different one.
I did read the Beano. I forget if we've talked about this
Beano.
on my podcast, Griffin. Anyway, Griffin, can you wait?
You
Can you have a take? Griffin,
Yes,
what's your take?
so I was just gonna say I was less of a DC guy, but the three titles I read semi regularly and kept up with the universes of were Flash, Batman, and Teen Titans. So like three members of this team essentially comprise the only things I ever seriously followed in the DC universe, right? I'm ostensibly in the tank for. In terms of my rankings, it was always like Wonder Woman's probably my favorite modern superhero movie, point blank. Like I prefer Wonder Woman to all the MCU movies, I think. But then I put pretty much every other MCU movie in between there. I'd say like Shazam is close to Wonder Woman for me on that tier. And then I like Birds of Prey and Aquaman with some reservations. And then everything else I could pretty much leave behind, right?
I love Aquaman. I'm a huge Aquaman defender. You know
thank
that,
you, David. Like to me, like I'm as excited to have you on because I also there's something about Aquaman that I will say, and I've talked about this where it is in many respects like what a child would want a superhero movie to be, and I love it. Like I just love it because it's like let's do that and there's something so pure. And again, like this movie, it's a pure vision, and I think you can like Joker's a whole other story, but I don't mind that when people with pure visions get involved in this, they make their version, and sometimes it really works, and Aquaman for me really worked. You can listen to the entire episode in your feed right now, and every Monday come back here for another Matinee Monday where we preview an episode that we've re-released, taken out of the vault, and given to you once more with commercials, but sure, a small price to pay.